What's up, everybody? We are back with the latest episode of Real Estate Uncensored. This is the place where you get actionable ideas, insight, and inspiration to turn your real estate career into a life of freedom. And we have an awesome guest today. We're talking about the 6 habits of high performance. Now, these are not just things that we pulled out from where the sun doesn't shine. These are 6 research-based habits. In other words, these are the stuff that actually works and is based on science. So we've got an actual doctor here with us today. No, I'm not talking about Greg, because if he's the doctor of anything, it's not anything I want to know about. So we've got him in the co-pilot seat where he belongs. We've got Gene here. We're going to have an awesome episode. So first of all, speaking of my illustrious compatriot, Greg McDaniel, what's up today?
I'm the digital doctor. I play a naughty doctor on TV. Does that count?
Mm-hmm.
No? Okay.
No. None of that makes any sense.
No, it really doesn't. But Sheri, I was talking with her before when she and I were talking about coming on the show, and I was just sitting there just astonished with how much cool knowledge she has up in her head, and the habits of high performance. I mean, these are some of the things that are so logical. But yet, it's so obvious that it hits us right in the face, and then we don't do anything with it. It's a complete conundrum, and I don't understand it. So, Sheri, we're all going to get on our Chase lounges. We're going to play soft music and just lull us into success, my friend. Pull us into success. All right, you have the floor.
And officially welcome to the show.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. I'm so excited to be here. I have a doctorate. I'm a doctor, not a medical doctor, but I have spent a lot of years in school studying psychology, studying behavior, and so I got the fancy title.
And in the trenches, coaching these messy people we call realtors. So you've got plenty of experience in both, which is why we're super pumped to have you here, because we're not going to talk about just general things. We're going to talk about things that you have specifically noticed in your practice, helping actual realtors overcome issues and get to kind of break through the limitations that keep them from the high performance habits. So it's not just that, this is not just a reminder of things we already know how to do. We need a swift kick in the pants sometimes, but there's a reason that we're not doing some of the things that we know we should do. And we can go after and attack those limitations, those obstacles that are the things that are holding us back. So that's what we want to really dive into today. Before we jump back in, because I want to dig into your background a little bit and see kind of how you got to where you're at. But before we do that, we got one person to welcome in as well. Gene Volpe, the evil bald ninja, the marketer extraordinaire. What's up today?
How you guys doing? And lady, how's everybody? I didn't know that we. Should I get a glass of Cavassier? We're sitting back with our smoking jackets on today. Is that what I got? You didn't warn me of this, Mr. McDaniel. It is 2:00 out on the East Coast.
Sorry, man. I got a line of grapes on my keyboard, which I'm going to loudly crunch the entire episode to annoy Johnson to no end. But it is going to be a lot of fun.
It's really your stunning professionalism that always makes me love you more, Greg.
All right, shut up.
He's got a collared shirt on today, dude. I don't know why.
I know.
Any grief.
I was going to say, I was not going to give him much grief until he started crunching on grapes, because I was actually very happy with the way Greg showed up and looked like a normal human being who showered today. So it's always a good thing.
4 minutes into the show and he's disappointed.
Exactly.
But I don't have pants on. I do.
Well, that I did not need to know. All right. So Sheri, let's get back to you. So you have this super unique background where you've got a deep background in the science, the literature, the research, but you've also been just working in the trenches with realtors and, of course, other small business owners and types of entrepreneurs. That's not the only type of person that you coach, but you've got a ton of experience coaching real estate agents. So how long have you been doing that, and how did you get into the wild and wacky world of coaching agents?
Well, so my husband is an associate broker and has been an agent for the last about almost decade. And so because that's his world, that also became my world. And so the more that I, learned about real estate, and we've been real estate investing for about 15 years. So I was part of that and always have been part of that as well. And so, I've gotten to know quite a bit about that, and I can hang almost with the best of them as far as understanding the lingo, understanding what it takes to be a successful agent. And so as my husband has built his team, it just was a natural transition that I would take my abilities as a coach and as a psychologist and the leadership work I was doing with other entrepreneurs in just kind of funneling that into his real estate team as well as other realtors. I mean, I will not coach any other realtors in our town, of course, because that would be conflict of interest. But by being able to do that with outside of this area, it's been a lot of fun. And that's awesome. Where I get the most excitement. I mean, I get filled up by that.
What's riddle me this? Just give us an idea of maybe the stage that your favorite types of clients are at. Are they relative beginners? Are they people who've been in the business 5-10 years that are hitting a ceiling? What's the favorite type of person you love to help?
Well, so let me answer that two parts. I think the most common realtor that I have worked with is one that is probably within the first year to 3 years. Mm-hmm. And so the way that and the challenges that agent has is slightly different, but at the same time is somewhat same as the realtor that's had some successes, has built up, but feels like they're kind of hitting a plateau or a ceiling of some sort. So I would say the one that's been in business, for about at least 5 to 7 years is probably where I feel like I get energized the most. But more of my experience has been.
Which makes sense. That tracks just with the general, like that's the way the industry is. I would say there's probably a good chunk of coaches that would say the same. You get a lot of fulfillment and impact from people that have hit the ceiling where you help them break through. But the fact is, like 80% of the agents running around have been in the business for 2 or 3 years or less, because that's how much turnover there is, sadly, in the industry. So that makes sense. So let's start with the beginner angle, just because we've got a lot of people listening and watching that are going to be coming from that perspective. And Greg, that's who you're have always been the most passionate about helping. So let's bounce it back and forth a little bit. So Sheri, give me something that you've noticed about newer agents that you can help them through, or maybe one of the struggles and obstacles that are pretty common to that stage.
Yeah. So most agents are coming from a normal job scenario where they have a boss, they come to work, they check in, they do their job, they check out, they go home, they live their normal life or their other life. And so the challenge that I often see is that, now you're for all intents and purposes, you're self-employed. You have to market yourself. You have to think about yourself, be intentional about yourself. And it's you as an agent is important in your role as being a successful agent. As it is the knowledge and, the actual lead gen or making phone calls. Well, how do you sound on the phone call? So there's a very different focus in being a realtor than people typically have experienced in their past jobs. The past job was just a plug and play. It didn't really matter your personality. So a lot of the struggles that I'm seeing with the newbies is all of a sudden how they interact, their personal qualities and characteristics, sometimes even their lifestyle, all of that stuff is on display now. And so they're struggling with, what do I do with that? I'm not comfortable, for example, videoing myself. I never had to do that for my past job. That really seems awkward. How do I look? I sound funny, kind of all of those things that people go through when they first hear themselves on video, but they've just never had to do that before. So it's an entire switch in kind of putting themselves out there for the world. And I think a lot of the challenges I see center around that.
Just around the video, or just self-promotion?
Self-promotion.
Yes, self-promotion.
So people would have no problem writing a blog post about themselves, but doing a video is a completely different beast, but it's both self-promotion. Is it just they feel inferior because they aren't Brad Pitt or Jennifer Aniston or some of these pretty people that act on screen all the time and they look perfect 10 out of 10 times? They're afraid that they have flaws like a normal human being? Are you seeing a lot of that?
Absolutely. Just in general population, that is hugely prevalent. And so why would it be any different in the realtor population?
The first year of this podcast, I paid for Matt's therapy bills. He was very self-conscious.
That was an investment in him, right?
It was a personal investment in the overall show, yeah.
and I'll always thank you, Greg. I appreciate it.
Gene's just naturally gorgeous.
Exactly. Gene doesn't have to worry about it. Exactly. Yeah, he just skates through life. Yeah. Right. Not a care in the world.
Well, when you detract people from here because your head is shining, it's a sleight of hand. I
thought she was gonna go I have warm eyes. That's what it is.
Warm eyes.
Warm eyes.
Oh man. All right. So Gene, let's bounce it to you for a second, because I know you deal with this because your entire business is based around taking content like videos, breaking it up into a million pieces and putting it everywhere to get more exposure online. You desperately need your clients to do more video. You're probably the impression I get is you're basically always asking your clients, for the love of God, will you give me more content?
I had this conversation today with a guy one of my buddies who's a broker, we're getting ready to launch one of our 50 cities for the best of concept, right? Where you become the mayor of your digital town. And I said to him, he was so concerned about the process of me editing the video and getting the video started and then breaking the video into pieces and converting the audio to a podcast and getting it to Apple and Google and then taking the memes and the artwork and the clips and marketing them across all the social channels. And I said, stop. That's everything that comes after. You're worried about all that stuff. I'm concerned that you're going to give me 4 hours a month because I need content from you. I need 4 30-minute videos, interviews with local business owners. So you got to figure out an hour per video, and I need you to give me 4 of those, and the rest of it will fall in place. Because I can chop that material up for days and weeks and years, but if I don't have that initial piece, I'm kind of up a creek.
Yeah. So let's talk about that a little bit, Sheri. Let's go into kind of one of the first habits that we want to touch on. And let's talk a little bit about how do you take yourself when you know that there's something you should be doing, like let's say it's Facebook Live videos more often to your database. How do you get yourself into a place where you start to recognize what the bottleneck or the obstacle is so that you can start to work on it?
Right. So you brought up the word habit, and I want to put that, what we're talking about with social media, in the framework of one of the habits. The habit itself is courage, is acting or developing or increasing your courage. Okay, and so what I see is this sphere of social media or the sphere of videoing and all that sort of stuff kind of lives often under that. And so the people are just afraid of being genuine, putting themselves out there, their fear of criticism. There's a lot of different things wrapped up in it, and everybody's a bit different as far as what is the motivator for why they're fearful of doing some of these things. But you have to build the habit of having courage. And so what that simply looks like is every day you recognize when you're afraid of doing something, when you're hesitant or when you've got the butterflies or whatever, you recognize when you're fearful of something, and then you make a plan and you do it. Don't take too long in making the plan, though, because sometimes people get caught up on I'm not ready yet. Okay,
right.
Well, just do it. Just do it. Action is better than, 1,000 hours of planning. And so with the social media, it's as simple but as hard as you just have to do it. And so, maybe a lot of times what I work with the agents that I work with is having them set up a successive plan of getting more used to doing the videos and social media. And sometimes it's taking baby steps at the beginning and just doing some videos where they pre-recorded, because they have a little bit more control over if they stumble and say the wrong word, or they,
Well, I always recommend that people for Facebook Live especially, start by publishing it to yourself first.
Yeah.
You still get the practice of going live because the mechanics of it can trip you up just all by themselves. So practice the mechanics of it by going into Facebook and just changing the settings so it only broadcasts to yourself. And then you can change it so it only broadcasts to family and friends. You can kind of wean yourself onto going live publicly to your entire profile one step at a time. You don't have to necessarily go, full on right off the bat to everyone, especially when you're doing Facebook Live for the first time, because there's some tech stuff to get used to, and that's fine. But yeah, you're right. If you make a plan, don't spend so much time on the plan that you don't actually do the thing that you're fearful to do.
Yes, and I love that idea about Facebook Live. So
I'm sorry, it's trademarked.
I'm not used
I just went in. Oh, so close. I just went in as we were talking. I just trademarked that.
Listen, can I stop you there, because I disagree with you.
Oh,
about what? Wait a minute. You disagree with who, Gene?
You, Matt Johnson.
Oh, of course.
Well, and I guess by proxy.
I, for one, am shocked. All right, go ahead.
I guess by proxy, the good doctor.
Okay.
No. Listen, I think that there's a lot of validity to what you say, right? Because it helps you protect yourself from your own embarrassment, right?
Right.
But working in the real estate field, here's what I can tell you: the more you introduce hurdles into the process to these agents, the less they do anything of any value, right? Here's what I mean. When I go and I do my training on videos, and I take out my camera and I go, take this video, make sure it's just one clip, plug it into your PC, and then open your editing program. I lose 97% of them.
Yeah,
they're gone. So when you start talking,
open an editing program. Come on, Gene. What are we talking about here?
Here's what I feel like. Remember the first time you jumped off the high dive?
Yeah.
You mill around, and the fear builds and it builds, and you climb back down the ladder. Just jump.
Yeah, I get that, but here's what needs to happen. Honestly, like most agents need to show up to an event, and some, like Greg, you and I did this in Michigan, right? Mm-hmm. Take out your phone. Here's the voice message thing. Here's where to find it. Where do I find it? Here's where to find. Where do I find it again? Here's where to find it. Like we've been through this before, and that's to me that's what most agents need. They need somebody to walk them through it, right? And that's okay. Yeah, I mean, so if we're talking about what really works to get most agents to do something, they got to see it done. They have to have somebody do it with them, and then they'll do it. You know what I'm saying?
Well, Matt, we had one of our. If they want to do something differently and not do the Facebook Lives, they can totally do that. But the courage can build. You can go and do an Instagram TV because you're going to pre-record those videos. Then you're going to push it out into social media, and Instagram will push that out as long as you have a good title and you do it for over 60 seconds long. And then you get your thumbnail on that. But I mean, that could be a great kiddie pool to jump into, dip your toes in and see if you like this whole video thing because it is pre-recorded. You do have editing control, and then you can push it out there and then jump into the bigger pool and do live Facebook, live YouTube, and so on and so forth. But I mean, Doc, I think the biggest thing is that people, they underestimate their abilities to do things, and I think that they're mainly thinking about what's everyone else going to judge me about. Look, nobody gives a shit about you at all. They're more concerned about themselves. So if you're so concerned about them caring about you, you are pathologically wrong. Well, that's not how that word should be used. But that. But you're a psycho if you think everyone's watching you. Just go do you.
Like narcissistically wrong.
Yes. That's the word I'm looking for. Mm-hmm. But I mean, realistically, you know what? Bob from Remax, his ass ain't going to be doing a video, but when you do it, he's going to be looking at you going, damn, I wish I had the courage of that guy or that gal.
Yeah, exactly. True. So I want to bring both of your guys' perspective back to the concept of courage, because I do think you both can be right. Gene, what you're talking about, by forcing, my guess is that the person that comes to you and says, hey, I need your robust marketing strategies to implement, they probably have already built up their muscle of courage over time, having done stuff, and now they're ready to jump in the big pool and do the big stuff. I don't think you're going to get, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you're probably not going to get a newbie agent who's never ever done anything on video being like, broadcast me over all of it. They're less likely to do that, I would say. And so sometimes you can push somebody to take the major plunge, and just do an hour video if they've never done a video before. There might be that occasional person, but I would guess that they probably have built up that muscle of courage more than, just in general, not necessarily just in social media, but courage is courage, regardless of which domain you're talking. So sometimes it needs to be a baby step. Sometimes people can tolerate a much larger step.
I think that runs the gamut. I see all kinds for sure. But yeah, you can. The funny part is I'll know going into a sit down with somebody, like a consultation. It only usually takes me about 35 seconds to figure out if they're going to be a tough nut to crack when it comes to that, or if this is not going to be a problem. I'm just going to get a constant flow of marketing material. You can usually see it right away. But I see a lot. I see a lot of people that are like, I know I need to do it, but I'm scared. And then I get the other guys that are like, and gals that are like, yeah, I've been doing this for 4 years. It's fine. I just need somebody to help me with the distribution of it or something.
Exactly. Yeah. And so a lot of time, my time is spent at times with the folks that are, well, what's that going to mean? How's that going to impact me? It's they really need to shift their perspective about themselves and about their, and focus, quite honestly, on, what is the big picture? Like, why are you even doing real estate? This really isn't about self-promotion. I mean, that's not the point of your real estate career unless you're, you're narcissistic, like Greg.
Hey. He said, hey.
You're the one that used the word.
I walked into that. Even as much as the video, I shoot video almost every single day. With my new TV show, I'm doing full day filmings. When Gene talked me into getting my DSLR camera, my T7i, dude, I was very nervous. I let that thing sit in the bag for like a month and never touched it because I was afraid of using that camera. So, I mean, it runs the gamut. It doesn't matter if you've been shooting video all the time or if you're something brand new into it. We all have a level of fear. But guess what? I took action on it. I just started using it, and now it's just like walking down the street. I mean, it's just a part of life. And gain courage. All of you guys out there who are married or dating, one or both of you had courage to go on that first date, talk to that guy, talk to that gal. That took courage. Take the same amount of courage and go on video. I mean, a video is not going to tell you to go kick rocks. I mean, it's just not going to happen. It's not going to throw a drink in your face, Matt. It's going to be very, very simple. And it's just taking the first step, man.
I don't know. I've learned to just embrace drinks being thrown at me as free drinks and refreshing way to cool off in the summer. How's that?
You just open your mouth wide and hope some of it gets in.
Exactly.
Gets in the bloodstream faster when you pour it over your head.
What? Sure. Is that how that works, Gene? Okay. Maybe if you're bald. I don't think that works when you have hair. I think maybe the alcohol seeps into your follicles because they're unoccupied currently. All right.
Listen,
let's talk about.
I just know when I bathe in vodka, I'm tanked up when I get out of the tub.
Oh, okay. When you bathe in vodka. All right. I'm going to leave that one alone. All right. Let's talk about, let's shift gears a little bit and let's talk about one of the other habits. We can talk about necessity, Sheri, if there's another one that you'd like to bring up. But yeah, let's move on and talk about one of the other habits of high performance.
You were on the same wavelength as me. I was actually going to shift us because necessity ties in really well with what Greg was saying as far as having this camera and kind of having some fear around that. So when you think about why you're doing what you're doing, there's a couple, think of necessity as motivation. There's a couple reasons why you're motivated to do what you do, or a couple categories. There's internal motivation, which thoughts around that might be, I just am a person who likes to do the best, likes to be excellent. So therefore, I do the best I can because that's who I am. So there's internal motivators. Also around that is your values. If you value your family life and you're like, let's say you're the sole bread provider for your family, there's a necessity, an internal necessity there of I need to provide for my family. It's a value I have. So you're gonna be more likely to do what it takes to be able to fulfill that value for your family, which then ties into the necessity. There's also external necessities. So things around you that kind of help force you to do something. And so with Greg's example, I think part of that is an external necessity was placed on him. He knew that he was going to be doing this new launch or the show, and like he had to at some point start recording himself more long term and do some of these things. So the pressure was mounting. He knew he had to do it. So at some point, the necessity of doing it overcame the fear, and the courage kind of was the gap to doing that. So thinking about motivation, some of it is working on building your internal motivation to do something. Some of it is you actually have a lot of control about the external motivators that motivate us. And so sometimes that looks like, inviting people into your life that support you, will challenge you, that are better than you, because so that you want to, step up and meet their level of expectation for you or their level of success. So that's how, one example of introducing necessity and courage kind of into the same conversation. Because
the funny thing is Tony Robbins, I remember this a long time ago, he was making $35, I think as a truck driver or something like that, $35,000 a year. And he was obviously very poor, and he said, I would never have a child if I was going to be poor. And when he found out that his wife at the time was pregnant, he went from making $35,000 a year, and in 12 months went right to $1 million. That's his necessity changed. And you get what you tolerate is exactly what happens in life. And so in my own life, I've looked around and been like, wait a minute, what the hell? I'm tolerating this bullshit? All right, I'm changing this. And I'm going to make shifts in life. And if you want to be the number one agent, if you want to have the more listings, if you want to get started at that first sale, well, what are you going to tolerate? Are you going to tolerate by looking at that camera in the bag for a month when it could be out working for you? Are you going to tolerate, knowing that you should go door knocking or doing the calls, but you don't do them because you're afraid of your own shadow? What are you going to tolerate? It's that simple.
One of the two challenges I see that kind of funnel into the same thing is a lot of agents, mediocre or low performing agents, don't have a lot of necessity around the finances of their business. Mm-hmm. And we see this a lot in part-time agents because they already have another job that's providing them income. So, maybe this is just something that they thought, oh, it might be kind of fun to do, but they're not super committed to it. So they could give or take if they end up making money. Or the other example is if they, maybe this is their full-time job, but they have a spouse who provides sufficiently. And so this is extra income. So those are two situations where I see a lot of people struggle with necessity because, financially they don't have to be super performers. They can kind of be mediocre and they don't have to try to bust through those fears that they have. They can just try to be just good enough to, in whatever their situation. One of the gal realtors that I work with right now, she had this longer term goal, maybe 3 years or so, of I'm going to become an agent and I'm going to, slowly build up to the point where I can replace or slowly or approximately replace my husband's income so that I can bring him home from a job that he had has that took him away from home for weeks at a time. And so she made the leap. She got into real estate. She was pretty motivated. Well, wouldn't you know, like a couple months into her career, her husband in the career field he's in, often they get laid off for periods of time. Well, he got laid off. And so all of a sudden, what was like a 3-year goal now became like a 2-week goal. Like her necessity increased dramatically. And so I can see like she is committed. Every week she comes and she's like, all right, what else do I need to do to increase courage? How else can I fight like she's on it. She's going to do amazing because her necessity
is awesome. I love those types of stories. And, sorry that her husband lost his job, but everything happens for a reason in life. And that was obviously a motivator for her to kick rocks and, I can't talk today, so I'm just going to just shut up and let the doctor talk.
The kicking rocks, but yes, give herself a good kick in the butt, maybe. Yeah. It's I think that is one of the toughest things because it's one of the reasons why we hit plateaus as entrepreneurs is the necessity stops. I've talked to people even in like MLM businesses that are leading teams, and they complain about their senior leaders, quote unquote, on their team, like they hit 6 figures or multiple 6 figures, and all of a sudden they just kind of stop. We all hit those things where we hit a point where there's less of a necessity, and there's a bunch of different ways to break through. But sometimes life is going to force that by forcing the necessity back on us if we slack off too much. But it is definitely hard to kind of create artificial necessity. We have to, to me, I get around it by focusing on the areas where I feel like the business isn't as healthy as it should be and where I'm not as good a leader as I can be. And I know if I improve the health of the business and I get better as a leader, the business will continue to grow, even if I'm not in a place where financial necessity is an issue, right? So I create urgency and other like psychic urgency in other ways by putting pressure, like mental and emotional pressure on myself to get better in areas that are painful to be weak in. But that's not, most people are never used to getting to a point where financial necessity isn't an issue.
Absolutely. You bring up a great point. In the field of psychology, there's what's called the Maslow's hierarchy of need. I'm sure you've probably, if you've been to Psychology 101, it's this triangle. At the bottom of the triangle are the most basic needs of life, shelter, water, food, clothing. And then as you move up the triangle, at the very top is kind of like the self actualization is what he used to call it. And then you've got the areas in between. And so you're right. Once the population gets the bottom one under control, or those needs met, it can be harder to stay motivated as you kind of move up that ladder of needs. And so it does turn into being a lot more of an internal need. You have to be more active in making sure that necessity is still present in your life. And that could be something like joining a mastermind where you feel like you aren't worthy of being in that mastermind.
Right.
Maybe, if it's a fight, if you have to make $250,000 in order to join the mastermind, and you just made $251,000. Like you just got in there. that's a great way of providing or increasing necessity, because you're like, I don't want to be in this group of people and be like the bottom of the barrel scum of, and so, there's things that you can do to kind of force yourself into those situations. And they might not be
That's a good point.
financial.
I like it. Yeah, it's always helped me to get around people that were super successful, and not only in kind of resetting my set point of what I should go after and what's possible, but yeah, there's a bunch of other benefits to being around the right group of people that are more successful, because it also opens up your horizons of what's possible, and a lot of times they'll have their own opinions and ideas for how to achieve it tactically. So it's not just about keeping your motivation. They'll also have a lot of the how-tos of how to actually get things done. So I agree. That's one of the best ways to do that.
And so another example can be oh, you were going to say something. I totally cut you off.
It's okay. You're the guest. You're allowed to do that.
Okay.
Matt and Jean, they're not allowed to do that. But you are.
Okay.
The person I hang out with a lot is extremely successful, and it's like what you guys are talking about. It takes my mindset, and I've gone to a whole nother place with what I think about and how I'm driven. Because like you're saying, Doc, you don't want to be the bottom of the barrel. You don't want to be the fat guy in the relationship. You want to be a better version of who you are, and you're going to be the grand total of the people you hang out with the most. And that's drinking, drugs, workouts, eating habits, financial, decisions. So who you hang out with is going to have a direct reflection of who you're going to be. And that could be a hard conversation pill to swallow, because it could be your friends and family. It could be people that have been in your life for decades. And sometimes you've got to do some weeding, clear some stuff out of your life, no matter how bad it is.
You just say sometimes you have to do weed?
Well, yeah, I do the weed.
Besides that.
The weed is strong. But it's true, though.
So in what you said, you're kind of tapping into one of the other habits, and that's around clarity. It's kind of like you have to have clarity in life before you really can truly be a high performer, because otherwise you're scattered. If you think about getting on an airplane, the airplane is going to have an endpoint. They're going to be clear in exactly which airport they're going to land in. Mm-hmm. Now their path to the airport is going to, to your destination is going to go back and forth. They're going to constantly be correcting themselves based on wind speed, based on, flocks of birds and all that stuff. But they know exactly where they're going. So having clarity is really important. And part of having clarity is evaluating your life, evaluating what you're doing, evaluating who you're around, your social network, because your social network it's quite likely that there's people that are not actually helping you or supporting you and are detracting, whether they're just super negative or whether they just suck the time and life out of you. So that's one of the challenges too, as you kind of, as people are on the journey of high performance, is you have to be intentional about everything, including who you let into your life and who you let influence you.
And it's one of the things that sometimes you don't even know what's going on. I mean, Jean, in with what you're working with your clients and your own self, have you ever had to go do some house cleaning and get people out, or maybe help people do that so that they can get to the next level in their business?
For sure. Yeah, it happens all the time. I think with just people's psyche needs to be rearranged every once in a while. And you know me, I'm fairly open and transparent. Mm-hmm. I don't really hide stuff. I don't beat around the bush a lot.
Thank God, because you talk so much. It's very good that we know what we're getting from you. But
there's a doctor on the program. What do you need to hear from me?
All right,
come on, man.
Let me ask you, Gene. What has been the most challenging relationship that you have had to give up?
You did it now, Gene. You got the doctor coming after you.
Wait, the most challenging relationship I had to give up because of what?
In your career, to continue on in your path.
The one with my wife.
Oh.
I had to kick her to the curb because she was getting. No, I'm only kidding. I'm kidding.
She was getting uppity.
I almost had to give my therapy face of like, tell me more.
Dean, how does that make you feel?
Here's how it makes me feel. I know I can get away with that every once in a while because she's not watching. Otherwise, she would be down here right now looking at me in my office like, get up here right now. Sometimes I get hit. I don't know. I don't really cut many relationships for the most part. I think I'm more of a passive relationship ender. I'm not one of those guys where like I'll call you and be like, "Look, this isn't working." I kind of go into a hole. I've always been like that. I don't like burning bridges, and I don't like the stress that comes with having to tell people you don't like them very much.
You know what? I actually have an answer for you, Doc. I had to cut a relationship with one of my longtime lenders that I've used for decades, and I can say that because I've been doing this for 20 years. I literally been using them since the beginning of my thing, but you know what? It was no longer was not serving the purpose because he was going in one way, I was going the other, and I felt bad about severing the relationship or minimizing it significantly. But you know what? I felt better after the split had taken place because I was able to develop new relationships with new business partners who were supporting me in my next ventures and my new goals. Yeah. And that was a hard one. I mean, that was a hard one. He and I did millions of dollars of business together. But yeah, that was a hard relationship to sever. But it takes courage and necessity.
Yes. So, Gene, back to you.
That means you were boring, Greg. That was boring, Greg.
No. The quiet one gets picked on is the way it works.
No, I'm okay with that.
So I hear what you're saying, Gene. If you don't like to be like, you're not cutting it, I'm cutting you out of my life. But I would guess that at some point there was a conscious recognition that, wow, like this person is draining, or I just walk away from conversations with them. Just, it takes me a while to shake what they're saying or those sorts of things. And so then you made the conscious decision that I'm going to decrease my
that happens. That happens all the time, for sure. Yes. And so I always think about it like, you've ever seen the meme of Homer Simpson where he's falling away into the bushes?
Yeah.
That's me. That's me. So like we're on the phone 3 times a week, 2 times a week, 1 time a week, 1 time a month. Or Gene, who? Like I'm sliding out, man. You don't even know I'm leaving. No, I've done that, and and actually you made me think. I used to work for I was a manager with Verizon Business for a while, and I've had to fire people. So like I was thinking about like how difficult that was to take somebody's livelihood away from them because it wasn't working out. So that kind of took me back a little bit to that.
Yeah, that kind of stuff should hit you a certain way. And let's put it this way, it should require courage. If it doesn't require courage, you may have something broken inside of you, and much more than Greg accuses of being broken inside of me, because I knew, Greg, that's where you were going with your comment about my little piece of coal where my heart should be. But yeah, like I have it hits me. I don't want to fire staff members. I don't, unless it's a particularly annoying client, don't enjoy firing clients, but I'll do it when it's necessary. There may be a little bit more glee in that particular situation, but I would prefer that it not get to the point where firing them makes me happy. Let's put it that way, because I care. I care, and I think you should care. So yeah, like if you're at the, I don't think you should feel bad or feeling bad for having to cut off certain relationships or let somebody go off of your team. To me, it's just an indication that you're a good person, like a normal person with a normal emotional range. So it takes courage. Anyway, so we've talked about courage, we've talked about necessity, and we've talked about clarity. Before we hit anything else, I want to make sure that we hit the most important thing, which is how do you find out more about Sheri and get into her world and get connected? So, Sheri, what's the best place for people to go?
Well, if you want just more information in general, the website is TitanEliteCoaching.com. I've got a 5-week course that you can enroll in, which is, kind of the low point of entry, in just kind of understanding the habits and starting to get some very concrete things to start to implement to get traction. And again, so high performance coaching is not about like quick success and all of that sort of thing, although it often happens, but it's more around how do you get success, but then maintain it. And right. So these are habits that aren't things that you're going to just do this week, master, and then move on from. They're things that in your best interest, you're going to master over weeks. Some of them are going to come really quick, but over months, and then you're going to keep them implemented to some, in some degree. You might, fine tune that over the years, but these are things that you should be doing for the rest of your life. Because if you want to be able to maintain your performance and not get burnt out, and be able to still enjoy the lifestyle that you want, you really kind of have to have these things. We know that based on research, these are the core things that high performers have when compared to the average Joe. The other way you can get a hold of me, you're welcome to email me directly, and that's Dr. Sheri Fluellen at Gmail, Doctor with a DR, Sheri with one R, Fluellen like Ellen has the flu, how we always say it.
Nice. Love it. All right, so Titan Elite Coaching.
Yeah.
So that's easy. All right. So we're, by the way, and then Gene and Greg will get to you in a second. So for the podcast, make sure to reach out, give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, and listen to us on Spotify and all the fun places. Gene, if someone should want your big fat marketing brain,
They won't.
applied to their stuff, of course they would.
No, they won't.
Where would they obtain such brain power?
Don't do it. Don't anybody call me. This is reverse psychology. This is the ultimate takeaway sale. Don't call me. I'm terrible at what I do. Don't call. GeneVolpe.com.
Nice. Got the jingles.
We're getting there.
And then Greg.
Call me. Text me. Smoke signals. Guys, get a hold of me. Let's do a free hour of coaching. Go ahead and hit me up on my number, 925-915-1978. I will put that in the comments as well. It's my cell. Shoot me a text. We'll book a time, do a call, hang out with my big heart of love and Matt's little tiny cold little heart. I love you. He likes you. And that's how you get a hold of me. So that's how we do it. Matt, let's put a bow on this thing and kind of come in with our last couple of theories or habits, I must say.
Yeah. Well, let's hit one more high performance habit before we shut down. So, Sheri, what's one that we can hit just in the last couple of minutes and leave people with something actionable to do?
Perfect. Let's talk about generating energy.
Okay.
Because it takes energy to be successful and to stay successful. So there's 3 ways to think about energy, or 3 kind of domains of it. There's the physical, there's the mental, and there's the emotional. We've talked a little bit about the emotional as far as, people can be emotion suckers. They're like parasites in your life, and you gotta cut those off. But let's talk a little bit about physical energy. A lot of people don't realize you can actually generate your own energy. Like, have you ever gone through a day and you're like, I'm so tired, man, I wish I could just get more energy, and you're blaming energy like it's this external thing in the world and it's just somehow passed you by for the day. When the reality is you can actually generate energy. Can you think of ways in your own life that you guys have generated energy?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah. Deep breathing, focus on, positive mental pictures. And then there's cookies.
Cookies and coffee. That will get Matt every time.
But that's one of those things where if I have been plugged in for too much, like I'm a natural introvert, so part of what gives me energy, I know this about myself, is I have to build in time ritualistically, consistently into my calendar to get away and think and strategize and plan, because that's part of just where I process emotion. So yeah, that's one of those things where I've just figured it out about myself, and a lot of introverts are the same way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So
I don't.
So generating physical energy. No, Greg, you're happy just being around people or something.
I'm like a Labrador. I just love everybody, and I always want to play fetch and hang out and everything else. And it is interesting how you can generate your energy. It's like if I go out, like I was tired when I went to my networking event that Rockstar connected me with this week. I just didn't want to go, and then I got there and I started talking to people, and energy right through the roof. So it's very different. But yeah, it is, and you can create negative energy. You also can create positive energy. If you think about something horrible, well, guess what? That's going to manifest into your life, and you're going to be down because of the energy you're providing. But you can shift with just a quick change of mind. I mean, Matt goes and eats a box of cookies, and feeds them to his obese, wood-dented, insulin-sucking little troll babies. I mean, God, he loves them. He just chucks them at them like a zookeeper throwing meat at a tiger. These kids they can't jump, but they kind of wiggle towards the cookie. It's very funny. Don't know how I can make that any worse for you.
I was going to say, wow, that was a stretch, I got to tell you. All right. Good Lord. That was a long way to go for that joke. All right.
So worth it.
So, yeah, that's one of the things. I was actually just looking at a list this morning. I was going back through an old notebook, and I had made a list at one point of what are all the things that I can do to change my state, my physical, mental, and emotional state. What are those state change activities, healthy or unhealthy? Just what are the things that I do or could do that would change my state? That's a pretty revealing little list to write out, because when you just focus on what are the things I'm doing right now or have done, and you don't like put any filter on it, you get a pretty good list of both good and bad things, really, really bad things sometimes that you do to change your state. And better to face reality, because those are things that some part of you is falling back on to change your state, deliver more energy, for example. And yeah, you have to consciously realize that some of those habits are pretty deeply hardwired in, and you have to replace them with something better. That's the only way to attack them.
Yeah. So one quick tip, some of the women might connect with this a little bit better than the male realtors, simply because just as a general statement, men's brains are a lot more compartmentalized than women's brains are. We tend to, there's a great book out there that just the title of it sums it up. Men are like waffles, women are like spaghetti. That says it all. And so there's a nice mental image for you.
Okay.
But so when you think about going through your day and you have bad interaction, a client that you just got off the phone with that's super mad, a contract that just fell through, or another, all of these things, they add up, and you're at, you can get to this point where you're just like ready to explode. And so if you recognize that every activity that you have, try to figure out how to compartmentalize that, to instead of it bleeding entirely over to the next one, then at the end of the day, you're not so burnt out. And it can be as simple, but I mean, this has to be an intentional thing, but as simple as, taking a moment to breathe, closing your eyes and taking in, a big deep breath. Maybe watching your best silly YouTube. I love JP Sears. I don't know if you guys watch any of his stuff. Oh my gosh, some of his things make me just roll with his sarcasm. And so watching something funny, but somehow you got to release that negative energy so that you can then turn around in your next, activity without carrying so much of that over. And so that would be kind of a simple strategy of, kind of renewing your energy instead of letting it continue to build and build.
Do you think that we let it build in a
negative
negative, or just overall because people don't know how to release it, or people thrive off of the negativity? Like for some sick reason, they actually get gratitude out of it. Like they could really, they don't know how to exist without that stress in their life. They don't know the difference.
I think it's both. So speaking to the person that thrives off of the negativity, I think a lot of that, I'm a psychologist. I kind of have to bring in, one's childhood at some point. So if you lived in an environment or a family that was very negative, very stress-based, you're living your life out of survival mode. And so often survival mode is very much a negative thought pattern that, you exist to beat down the negative and to overcome or to, just not get killed or whatever the scenario. So I think definitely some people are wired that way. But what I see is more of just ignorance. Like people just bumble along in life, not really being intentional about what's going on. And so they just, without even awareness, just kind of let things build and let things accumulate without even knowing that it's helpful to recognize what's happening and how to deal with it differently. So I think from my experience, it's more often just ignorance rather than, kind of this needing to feed off of the negative.
Very interesting. Well, explains Matt tremendously.
Thanks, Greg. And with that, all right. So let's wrap up there. I have to pick out a color for the bow that we're going to tie around this package of an episode. I'm dipping into my mental Crayola box here. Let's go with magenta. How about that? How about magenta?
Magenta. A very pretty color.
Yeah. Just tie that bow around the episode.
You are awesome. You got a lot of knowledge rolling around up in your head, and I think that helped a lot of agents. And when it comes to all the points you went over, and if everyone's just chiming in, go back and listen to this episode. It's really, really good. But the clarity is the one that really hit me, because I thought I was clear on my goals. When I sat down to write out my goals, I had no idea what to write. I stared at my page for a while, like, what are my goals? What do I really want? I could write down a bunch of bullshit, but holy cow. And then I finally started getting clarity. I'm like, oh, this is so much easier. Now I can have a goal and a path and, going towards things, and things started popping into my life. And so, yeah, clarity was a big one. So thank you for sharing. You are amazing. I really enjoyed having you, Matt, and actually you made him smile. And that is a hard thing to do. So thank you for putting a smile on Matt's face.
All right. And for everyone that's watching, first of all, thank you. We do love you. Greg claims that I don't, but that's not true. Come on now. Greg, shall we end this particular one?
Yes. All right, guys, we're putting a magenta bow on it. And until next time, know that we love you. Be kind to each other. And we will see you guys on the next video. Until then, peace out, my ninjas. We're gone.